In this video, we're going to learn how to solve for t when we're given a probability, and we did this in our previous video with a few examples. One thing to note, if we go to second vars, if you have a TI-84, you will be given the option for inverse t, but if you have a TI-83 calculator, you have to solve by hand. So for our inverse t, this is unlike a t-table. Your function will actually read less than probabilities, so we're going to work these a little differently than how we work them by hand. So in our first example, we were given a t-distribution with 22 degrees of freedom, and we were given a less than probability of 0.75. With a less than probability, you can plug that probability into the area directly. You do not have to take 1 minus the probability when it's a t-distribution if you're working on a calculator. And so we had 22 degrees of freedom, and if we paste these values into our function, we will get our t-score. Now if we go back and we look at the inverse t function, but we're working with a greater than probability, because we're using the calculator, we actually need to take 1 minus our probability. In our second example, we were given a probability of 0.02. So if I either take 1 minus 0.02, I recommend typing this in for some students just in case you make a common mistake, but that's actually the same as 0.98. We again have 22 degrees of freedom, so if we go ahead and paste that in, you will get your t-score for this problem. Now if we go back to second vars, we can finally work on an in-between problem. If you recall the video, we were looking at 90% of the distribution in the shaded region, and we're trying to solve for t1 and t2. And so that told me that 5% of the data fell below t1. And so if I have 22 degrees of freedom and an area of 5%, this will give me my t-score. And then my other t-score will just be the opposite of this value, or the positive of this value. You can also type in 95% of the data into your inverse t for t2. So if I do type in 0.95 falls below t2 for 22 degrees of freedom, notice that again I'm just getting the positive value of this t-score, and so these two values will be your in-between problem as we solved for in our previous video.